Makes me want to crack my neck too.
That one spot up here just wants to crack. And it pops a little, but it doesn't release. It makes it pull all the way through here, and then up through the top of the head to here.
Glad we got it on recording so we can share it with our chiropractor.
That one little disc back there.
Yeah.
Ready?
Ready.
Hello, everyone. Today we are doing lesson 96.
Yes, 96.
Let's see. 96, salvation comes from my one self. And we are doing the correlating chapter text of chapter 9, the acceptance of the atonement, section 5, the unhealed healer. Let us begin. Oh, Alex.
The unhealed healer. 1. The ego's plan for forgiveness is far more widely used than God's. This is because it is undertaken by unhealed healers and is therefore of the ego. Let us consider the unhealed healer more carefully now. By definition, he is trying to give what he has not received. If an unhealed healer is a theologian, for example, he may begin with the premise, I am a miserable sinner, and so are you. If he is a psychotherapist, he is more likely to start with the equally incredible belief that attack is real for both and the patient, but that it does not matter for either of them.
Could you read that last sentence over again?
If he is a psychotherapist, he is more likely to start with the equally incredible belief that attack is real for both himself and the patient, but that it does not matter for either of them.
Thank you.
I have repeatedly said that beliefs of the ego cannot be shared, and this is why they are unreal. How then can uncovering them make them real? Every healer who searches fantasies for truth must be unhealed because he does not know where to look for truth, and therefore does not have the answer to the problem of healing.
So, what that's talking about there is that our egos have us believing we have to go to someone else to heal ourselves of whatever it is we are experiencing. And because of that, we are unhealed healers. We are capable of healing ourselves. The body is capable of self-healing. What causes the sickness is the way we think. Our choice to believe as we do. Those are the things that tend to make us sick. Now, I know for me, everything that I was choosing to think and believe to be true about myself, all the judgments that had been handed to me, and about the people around me and those that did things to me, caused me to have cancers and many other diseases. And as I chose to look at them and let them go and recognize that none of it was true, those diseases went away as if they had never been. And as I went through that process, okay, as I went through that process, fine, I'll say it, hold on. As I went through that process, one of the things they kept saying to me was, healer, heal thyself. Healer, heal thyself. I believe it says something like that in the Bible too. About healer, heal thyself. And I was like, what the fuck is that supposed to mean? Now, I knew I was capable of hands-on healing, Reiki, things of that nature. I understood it and I knew it because I had done it. I didn't know how I did it. I didn't know what was going on or why it was that when I reached out and touched someone, that suddenly they felt better. And yet here I was getting sicker and sicker in my own life, not understanding why. And as I chose to go in and look at this shit that I was believing, I recognized that something's got to give here, and guess what? My body started giving. And when I looked within at all the shit that I was believing, I had to give away everything I was believing to Holy Spirit for Him to show me the truth of what I did. When I did that, I got shown the truth of where all those diseases came from and how I did it all to myself. I created them within me with my choices to believe and to judge. And as I let those things go, guess what? This healer healed herself. And as I heal myself, I extend that understanding, that knowing to you. Please continue.
There is an advantage to bringing nightmares into awareness, but only to teach that they are not real, and that anything they contain is meaningless. The unhealed healer cannot do this because he does not believe it. All unhealed healers follow the ego's plan for forgiveness in one form or another.
Can I interject something real quick?
Yes.
So up here where it's talking about there is an advantage to bringing nightmares into awareness, but only to teach that they are not real and that anything they contain is meaningless. Point of clarification here, folks. When I chose to look within if the shit I was believing to be true as defining me, I had to look at the rapes, molestations, and beatings that I experienced as a child. At each one of those experiences as if I was going through them again. And by bringing those nightmares into my awareness, it allowed me to see the truth of what I was choosing to do in those moments. How I judged whatever was happening to be other than it was. And how it wasn't until like adults would hand me these judgments and I would accept them. And when He showed me these truths of what I did, He showed me how meaningless those things I had accepted were. How they were all lies that had no meaning at all except for what I gave them in the moment. That is what that particular sentence is talking about. That is a prime example right there of what it's talking about, what I just shared. Of how He folded time so I could see the things I experienced. Those nightmarish traumas of being beaten on, force-fed by my grandmother and kicked across the room. The midnight visits. Things of that nature. Please continue.
If they are theologians, they are likely to condemn themselves, teach condemnation, and advocate a fearful solution. Projecting condemnation onto God, they make Him appear
retaliative
and fear His retribution. What they have done is merely to identify with the ego, and by perceiving what it does, condemn themselves because of this confusion. It is understandable that there have been revolts against this concept, but to revolt against it is still to believe in it. Some newer forms of the ego's plan are as unhelpful as the older ones, because form does not matter and the content has not changed. In one of the newer forms, for example, a psychotherapist may interpret the ego's symbols in a nightmare and then use them to prove that the nightmare is real. Having made it real, he then attempts to dispel its effects by depreciating the importance of the dreamer. This would be a healing approach if the dreamer were also identified as unreal. Yet if the dreamer is equated with the mind's corrective power through the Holy Spirit is denied. This is a contradiction even in the ego's terms, and one which it usually notes even in its confusion.
Exactly. It's like you're being told that these things that you're experiencing are imaginary, and then you're being told they're real, and then you're being told that they're imaginary again. It's like, what the fuck? Which one is it? A lot of this is talking about is that based on how you've been taught to believe and think will be how you will choose to perceive things. Many will come from the theologian perspective and point of view based on their religious doctrines. And then you've got the more modern day anti-religious, atheistic point of view going through the psychotherapy or the psychology realm. And in each of them, they are twisting things to match their view, match the perspective they want to see things from. And it's because of that that they cannot see things truly, because everything will be colored over and seen through the veil, like you're pulling a curtain in front of your face or a sheer piece of cloth, so that everything has a kind of foggy look to it when you're trying to see through it. And it's that kind of sheer veily cloth that's in front of your eyes right now. And that veil is made of, consisting of every single belief you've chosen to accept and hold forth as being true. And as it keeps telling you here, your ego thought system and beliefs will have you trying to outdo yourself and everyone around you, and telling you that they know the way, they know what's right, follow them. Instead of simply sitting still and going within and asking Holy Spirit. It wants you to believe that it's more powerful than Holy Spirit. That it will heal you of all the things that you believe you are made of right now, that define you. And all it does is leave you as an unhealed healer. Please continue.
5. If the way to counteract fear is to reduce the importance of the mind, how can this build ego strength? Such evident inconsistencies account for why no one has really explained what happens in psychotherapy. Nothing really does. Nothing real has happened to the unhealed healer, and he must learn from his own teaching. His ego will always seek to get something from the situation. The unhealed healer therefore does not know how to give, and consequently cannot share. He cannot correct because he is not working correctively. He believes that it is up to him to teach the patient what is real, although he does not know it himself. What then should happen? When God said, "Let there be light," there was light. How can you find light by analyzing darkness as the psychotherapist does, or like the theologian? By acknowledging darkness in yourself and looking for a distant light to remove it, while emphasizing the distance? Healing is not mysterious. Nothing will change unless it is understood. Since light is understanding, a, quote, miserable sinner cannot be healed without magic, nor can an unimportant mind esteem itself without magic.
Wow. Do you get what that's saying there, babe?
Roughly, yes.
It's like, it's pointing out that the ego belief system has you believing that the way to counteract fear is to dumb down the mind. The stupider the mind, the less likely it'll be to fear. The less the mind understands, the less likely it is to fear. Now, tell me, how true does that sound to you?
Doesn't sound true at all.
Sounds the opposite, doesn't it?
Yep.
It's like the less we understand, the more we fear. And it's that constant pressure to just accept whatever's being said without understanding that has us falling into the egoic trap of blindly following and believing, and then manifesting the pain and suffering we go through, all because we are in fear of questioning it, because that's what we've been told that we're not allowed to do. It's a prohibition. How many prohibitions do you have staring you down day after day? You're not allowed to go here, you're not allowed to go there, you're not allowed to say this, not allowed to say that. Can't wear this to work, can't wear that to work. Can't say this at work, can't say that at work. No fraternizing, all kinds of prohibitions. Anything that brings people together to connect consciously is prohibited. And what they say here is true about how a psychotherapist would have you believe that you can analyze the light by looking into the darkness and trying to find the light in some distant place. That it's out there, you'll find it eventually, but first we got to go through all this other stuff over here. And you got to do what I say when I say it and how I say it. I went through way too many fucking psychologists and psychotherapists in my life that tried that kind of bullshit on me.
That kind of sounds like most of the people I've run across in my life who say, follow me, I know the path to happiness.
Mm-hmm. It's part of the reason why your mom and I butt heads so much there in the beginning, because of her chosen profession and me telling her no thank you.
Right.
To clarify that, folks, his mom is a psychotherapist. And she loves to tell me that I'm not, she used to love to tell me that I'm narcissistic. That I always have to be right. And I looked her in the face and said, no, I would love to be wrong. I hate being right. And she just looked at me dumbfounded. What do you mean by that? I was like, I'm always right. I don't like being right. And then she looks at Alex like, what the hell is she talking about? And Alex, what was it? You were like, she's right.
Yeah.
I think she was like, oh my God, she's got you brainwashed. That was funny at the time. At the time, no, it wasn't funny. But now that I think about it, it's funny. Please continue.
Both forms of the ego's approach, then, must arrive at an impasse. The characteristic, quote, impossible situation to which the ego always leads. It may help someone to point out where he is heading, but the point is lost unless he also is helped to change his direction. The unhealed healer cannot do this for him, since he cannot do it for himself. The only meaningful contribution the healer can make is to present an example of one whose direction has been changed for him, and who no longer believes in nightmares of any kind. The light in his mind will therefore answer the questioner, who must decide with God that there is light because he sees it. And by his acknowledgement, the healer knows it is there. That is how perception ultimately is translated into knowledge. The miracle worker begins by perceiving light and translates his perception into assuredness by continually extending it and accepting its acknowledgement. Its effects assure him it is there.
Exactly. So every time I share my experiences and the lessons I've learned from them, it's how ultimately perception is changed. That is how I help to heal. Because I've healed myself, I can now heal others. My perceptions of the things I experienced has changed to a correct perception. And that's what I continually extend now. You know, everything that it's talking about here in regards to the ego believing that these situations are completely impossible. For a very long time in my life, that's how I felt, that everything was fucking impossible. I was in pain. I was suffering. I was in a nightmare that did not seem like it was ever going to end. I was fighting to stay alive, fighting to keep my relationship with my husband going. Everything in my life was falling apart. Then on top of it, the economy crashed. We lost our home due to the whole fucking housing bubble and the bullshit the lenders did there. And everything, there were misperceptions that were happening. And I had to let go all that shit in lieu of the truth. That I was doing it all to myself. And through all of that, Alex had to sit there and deal with me being a constant bitch to him. Because I was in utter, abject terror. And the more I was in fear, the more I pushed him away and everybody else around me. Please continue.
8. A therapist does not heal. He lets healing be. He can point to darkness, but he cannot bring light of himself, for light is not of him. Yet, being for him, it must also be for his patient. The Holy Spirit is the only therapist. He makes healing clear in any situation in which he is the guide. You can only let him fulfill his function. He needs no help for this. He will tell you exactly what to do to help anyone he sends to you for help, and will speak to him through you if you do not interfere. Remember that you choose the guide for helping, and the wrong choice will not help. But remember also that the right one will. Trust him, for help is his function, and he is of God. As you awaken other minds to the Holy Spirit through him, and not yourself, you will understand that you are not obeying the laws of this world, but the laws you are obeying work. Quote, "The good is what works," is a sound, though insufficient statement. Only the good can work. Nothing else works at all. This course offers a very direct and a very simple learning situation and provides the guide who tells you what to do. If you do it, you will see that it works. Its results are more convincing than its words. They will convince you that the words are true. By following the right guide, you will learn the simplest of all lessons. By their fruits ye shall know them, and they shall know themselves.
Yes. It's like when you hear your brother cast a judgment, you know they are not in their right mind. The minute they open their mouth and cast a judgment, they are not in their right mind. They are in their ego mind. Now, someone not too long ago had said something about, well, what if I don't know how to do this or that on my computer and I ask for and I need advice on that? And someone gives me some advice and I take it and do it and it works, Aren't they passing a judgment about what they think I need to do? Not necessarily. They are simply going by whatever it is that you're speaking of and making a making a discernment of what the situation may call for. They let you know what you can try to do, but it's still your choice to do so. People in the service industry don't generally blindly offer up advice on doing this or that unless they are initially asked for it. But that last sentence there, by their fruits ye shall know them, and they shall know themselves. The fruits they bear. Look around you at the people you hang around with. Look at the way they interact with each other, talk to each other, treat each other. And then recognize how you interact and treat those people in your immediate area around you. And you will recognize yourself by how you treat your brother or how your brother chooses to treat you, whether that resonates in your own heart or not. As it was saying here in paragraph 8, it takes trust to be in a willingness to seek Holy Spirit's guidance in everything, to trust that He will give you the answer. It may not come this fucking minute. There may be some catalyst needed before the light just dawns. Oh shit, that's what he's been talking about. Because believe me, I've done that many a time. Have time go on, and it feels like the same shit over and over and over again. And finally I reach this point, I'm just like so sick of it. I'm like, what the fuck am I missing? And then the light dawns. Clear as a bell what it is I've been missing and misperceiving and misunderstanding with the correction. But it's like I got to reach this breaking point of where I just can't stand it anymore. And then it comes. And 9 times out of 10, it's because I've been holding on to something that I just haven't wanted to get rid of. Hadn't wanted to let go because I felt like it was too valuable, too important. Foolish me for thinking that anything that I had been taught was of value. All right, that was Chapter 9, The Acceptance of the Atonement. Section 5, The Unhealed Healer. Let's move on to the chapter text. Excuse me. We just read the correlating chapter text. So let's move on to the lesson of the day, please, Alex.
Lesson 96. Salvation comes from my one self. Although you are one self, you experience yourself as two, as both good and evil, loving and hating, mind and body. This sense of being split into opposites induces feelings of acute and consistent conflict and leads to frantic attempts to reconcile the contradictory aspects of this self-perception. You have sought many such solutions, and none of them have worked. The opposites you see in you will never be compatible, but one exists. The fact that truth and illusion cannot be reconciled no matter how you try, what means you use, and where you see the problem must be accepted if you would be saved. Until you have accepted this, you will attempt an endless list of goals you cannot reach, a senseless series of expenditures of time and effort, hopefulness and doubt, each one as futile as the one before, and failing as the next one surely will. Problems that have no meaning cannot be resolved within the framework they are set. Two selves in conflict could not be resolved, and good and evil have no meeting place. The self you made can never be yourself, nor can yourself be split in two and still be what it must forever be. A mind and body cannot both exist. Make no attempt to reconcile the two, for one denies the other can be real. If you are physical, your mind is gone from your self-concept, for it has no place in which it could be really part of you. If you are spirit, then the body must be meaningless to your reality.
Yeah. So it's talking about having a split mind, how we see ourselves as a body, and how when we see ourselves as the body, then we try to see ourselves as our minds and see the two as being separate things, or that we're one and not the other, and just all kinds of crazy shit. It's that self-perception that we have of ourselves, that fogged view that we have after wrapping around judgment after judgment after judgment around ourselves. When we look in that mirror to see a reflection, we don't see ourselves. And that is what it's talking about there, about our self-perception and how it's a split version of ourselves. We're not seeing ourselves clearly. And that we keep choosing to go with the ego mind over Holy Spirit because we keep believing that Holy Spirit is the one that's going to kill us. When in truth, it's the ego mind that's killing us, having us believing in death. And the fact that, truth and illusion can't be reconciled is true. Once you recognize the fallacy of the illusions that you've been taught to believe are true, you'll recognize instantly how crazy it is to think and believe like that. And why it is that what you are now understanding is the truth. And as it says there, we spend time, efforts, energy We have our hopes come up and then doubts come crashing down on us. Constantly searching and seeking and never finding. Failing constantly to reach those goals we set for ourselves. And all of these problems that actually have absolutely no meaning except for what we keep giving them. We make them seem larger and larger and larger until we feel so overwhelmed we can't do anything about it. We lock down. And it's when we get like that that we just shut down completely and we find a way to distract ourselves, to stop the pain any way we can in those moments. Whether that's a video game, movies, alcohol, drugs, sex, books. I know for a long time, in my early 20s, I read a lot of romance novels, encyclopedias, anything I could get my hands on just to distract me from the hell my life was. Please continue.
Spirit makes use of mind as means to find its self-expression, and the mind which serves the spirit is at peace and filled with joy. Its power comes from spirit, and it is fulfilling happily its function here. Yet mind can also see itself divorced from spirit and perceive itself within a body it confuses with itself. Without its function, then, it has no peace, and happiness is alien to its thoughts. Yet mind apart from spirit cannot think. It has denied its source of strength, and sees itself as helpless, limited, and weak. Disassociated from its function now, it thinks it is alone and separate, attacked by armies massed against itself, and hiding in the body's frail support. Now must it reconcile unlike with like, for this is what it thinks that is for. Waste no more time on this. Who can resolve the senseless conflicts which a dream presents? What could the resolution mean in truth? What purpose could it serve? What is it for? Salvation cannot make illusions real, nor solve a problem that does not exist. Perhaps you hope it can. Yet would you have God's plan for the release of His dear Son bring pain to Him and fail to set Him free?
Holy Spirit has used every one of my experiences since I was a child, that infant being force-fed and kicked across the room, to now. Every one of those experiences He's used for my benefit. He has used them and shown me the truth of what it was that I was thinking and believing. And He makes use of my mind in that way to show me these truths and to find the expressions that will work best with me and with my brothers. It's like, what's that analogy, Alex, that the peanuts, peanut gallery.
Peanut gallery?
Yeah. They my guides refer to the general populace, you know, my brothers out there, as the peanut gallery. And he tells me that if I want the real peanut butter to come to Holy Spirit, yet if all I'm wanting are some nuts slowly roasted in the sweat, the blood, sweat, and tears of their own pain and suffering in the hell of their own creation, then go to the peanut gallery. But if I want the real peanut butter, go to Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit has the real peanut butter. And every time I use that analogy, my brothers go in a fucking uproar. oh my God, you're calling people names and da da da. No, no, no. It's the truth. If I want to stay insane, I continue looking to my brothers who are insane. If I want to be sane, I go to Holy Spirit. If I want to lose that insanity from myself, I go to Holy Spirit. Simple as that. Holy Spirit is the peanut butter. The real deal, smooth and creamy. Lots of flavor. Please continue.
Yourself retains its thoughts, and they remain within your mind and in the mind of God. The Holy Spirit holds salvation in your mind and offers it the way to peace. Salvation is a thought you share with God because His voice accepted it for you and answered in your name that it was done. Thus is salvation kept among the thoughts yourself holds dear and cherishes for you. We will attempt today to find this thought, whose presence in your mind is guaranteed by Him who speaks to you from your one self. Our hourly 5-minute practicing will be a search for Him within your mind. Salvation comes from this one self through Him who is the bridge between your mind and it. Wait patiently and let Him speak to you about yourself and what your mind can do, restored to it and free to serve its will. Begin with saying this: salvation comes from my one self. Its thoughts are mine to use. Then seek its thoughts and claim them as your own. These are your own real thoughts you have denied. And let your mind go wandering in a world of dreams to find illusions in their place. Here are your thoughts, the only ones you have. Salvation is among them. Find it there. If you succeed, the thoughts that come to you will tell you you are saved and that your mind has found the function that it sought to lose. Yourself will welcome it and give it peace. Restored in strength, it will again flow out from Spirit to the Spirit and all things created by the Spirit as itself. Your mind will bless all things. Confusion done, you are restored, for you have found yourself. Yourself knows that it cannot fail today. Perhaps your mind remains uncertain yet a little while. Be not dismayed by this. The joy yourself experiences will save it for you, and it will yet be yours in full awareness. Every time you spend 5 minutes of the hour seeking Him who joins your mind and self, you offer Him another treasure to be kept for you. Each time today you tell your frantic mind salvation comes from your one self, you lay another treasure in your growing store. And all of it is given everyone who asks for it and will accept the gift. Think then how much is given unto you to give this day, that it be given you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have an issue.
What's that?
Because I wasn't able to follow along as you were reading. I was like totally discombobulated and befuddled. Oh, man. So, go ahead.
So, going back up, I think it might be the page before, where it starts off on the paragraph where it says, problems that have no meaning cannot be resolved within the framework they are set.
Mm-hmm.
Two selves in conflict could not be resolved. And in the next paragraph it says, spirit makes use of mind as means to find its self-expression.
Mm-hmm.
And the mind which serves the spirit is at peace and filled with joy. And so what I'm getting an understanding of is something that I've been experiencing with Holy Spirit, laying my day out so that everything works synchronistically.
Mm-hmm.
That I wake up when I need to wake up. I am where I am when I need to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And it frees me up to let go of fear and worry and concern, and allows me to express myself and what gives me joy, which most days is working. And I find a lot of joy and satisfaction in my work because I get, actually, believe it or not, I get to get creative with cleaning up computer wires. And for some reason, I have so much joy doing so because I really like taking something that looks like a nasty mess and nobody can touch, nobody can do anything about it. And I have enough understanding as to what wire goes where that I can take it all apart, clean up all the wires, and put it all back together again.
In a neat, concise manner where stuff's easily accessible.
Yes.
And not tangled.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, as you were speaking about that, it had me thinking about what happened this morning, in that discombobulating confusion we went through this morning.
Right. And still Spirit was making sure that I was where I needed to be when I needed to be there, despite my misperceptions that had me being angry.
Yeah.
And my understanding is that Holy Spirit is presenting me with these situations that do make me angry, because then it gives me an opportunity to look at my judgments, look at my fears, look at my triggers.
Yeah, and all these things that you've been believing about this or that have you judging it the way you are.
Right.
And it's not until you do that suddenly, a door opens for you to release it and choose differently.
The hard thing for me is not to then go further into self-doubt that something has gone wrong. Like, I shouldn't be getting angry. I must be doing something wrong. And it's not that I'm doing something wrong. I simply hold a misperception.
Yeah.
And so it takes vigilance to not get into a further ego spiral of self-doubt and self-criticism.
Yeah, it's not just the self-doubt and self-criticisms, but that spiral you're talking about, it's a repeating pattern from our childhood. Every single time, it's a pattern that we learned in childhood. And we carry it over into our adulthood, not even understanding that that's what we've done. And although the characters around us change, our mentality about shit stays the same. We just pick up new things to add to our repertoire of judgments. New things to now be afraid of, as our eyes see that there's more things out there in the world than we thought there could be. Things we never knew existed are suddenly there in our faces because of that small little town we lived in. It's these things that we are being asked to look at here, folks. It's these things that keep causing us the pain and the suffering. Or having us go at each other's throats. And not in a fun way.
And not in a literal way.
No. No, not in a literal way either. No, that's one thing that he and I have never done in our 18 years together, is we've never gotten violent with each other. We both came from violent relationships prior. But when we first met and became friends, we talked about the things that we had experienced in our relationships and how the next one around that we were going to get into, that there was going to be no violence. And when we came together as friends. We weren't looking for romance. But it took us, 6 months?
For romance, yes.
Before the romance came into play. Of just being friends, hanging out. But let me tell you, in these 18 years, there's been a lot of misperceptions on both of our parts. A lot of misunderstandings, confusion, pain, and suffering. And then there's been a lot of love and laughter, joy and happiness, and support, and acceptance. Did we still hold judgments of each other? Yes, we did. But we still accepted each other. Even with those judgments. And we chose to look past them. And in a lot of ways, that's what Holy Spirit is asking you to do. To let go your judgments, look past them to the soul that stands in front of you. Look past your own judgments as you look at your brother and see them as they truly are and not as you would have them be. All right, folks. That was lesson 96. Salvation comes from my one self. And the correlating chapter text of chapter 9, the acceptance of the atonement, section 5, the unhealed healer. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Sabrina Reyenga.
And I am Alex Reyenga.
Hugs, love, light, and blessings on your journey, my brothers. You are loved. We love you. Please be the light you are meant to be. Please be the light we know you to be. Please choose to be the light. And please consider sharing your journey and the trials and tribulations you've experienced along the way and the lessons you've learned from them. Share authentically from the heart, holding nothing back. And recognize if your brothers judge in any way, they are telling you what they think about themselves. Stand in your light of truth and share from the heart who you are and who you want to be. Thank you for joining us today. You are loved. We love you. Have a beautiful day.